Hello there, my name is Jeremy Peterman and welcome to my little guide to playing on the organ at the Church of St. Francis of Assisi in downtown Prague. The full name of the church in Czech is Kostel svatého Františka z Assisi. It's quite literally 150 steps from the eastern end of the Charles Bridge, or Kolov Most. You can see the church in the distance there. I had the opportunity to play the organ here as part of a church choir tour organized through tourresource.com, which specializes in performance-based tours. The organ at the Church of St. Francis of Assisi was built in 1701, and with numerous refurbishments over the centuries, it remains in perfect playing condition today. It has Baroque tuning. If you want to learn more about that, there's certainly videos on YouTube. And it is tuned at 415. It's so old, of course, that even Mozart played on this organ during his visits between 1787 and 1791. It's rare to get an opportunity to play on a true Baroque organ, especially one in such impeccable condition. Should you gain the privilege of playing there, I'm making this video so that you'll be more prepared to play than I was, especially given the fact that you'll probably only have between 30 and 45 minutes to acquaint yourself with the organ before your own concert. I had at least expected that it would be somewhat daunting because the pre-show schedule was so tight, but the conversation that occurred on the way to the organ threw me for a terrifying loop. First, here was the schedule to rehearse. The church closes its doors to visitors at 2 p.m. so that I can practice for 30 minutes. The choir does a sound check from 2:30 to 2:40. The doors open at 2:40 for our 3 p.m. concert. If you search for this organ on YouTube, you'll just find a handful of videos showing that there is normally a daily concert that is done every evening featuring trumpet, soprano, and organ. I'm sure it's all lovely music, but it's a well-oiled machine geared towards tourists. Here's a sample lineup, same every day, but ours was at an unusual time, 3 p.m., and was sold out because the coordinator at the church had invited a large group from his contact list for this out-of-the-ordinary musical event. Anyway, as the church coordinator walked me up the steps to the organ, he asked, in English, "I know that we had said 30 to 35 minutes, but is there any way you can make your concert more like 50 minutes to an hour?" The choir had only about 15 minutes of their own music, yet I reluctantly agreed, even though I knew I would never have time to both familiarize myself with the organ and set exact registrations. And I definitely didn't know if I had that much music with me. This video is to help you be over-prepared for your concert at St. Francis of Assisi in Prague, be it as a solo organ recital or with choir. I'll tell you almost everything you need to know to make it more successful. To be clear, my concert turned out very well, as recordings later proved, but there was not nearly enough time to fully acquaint myself on this organ, nor could I prepare much in America. I couldn't find any pictures or videos of the console to proactively study the layout of the stops, and after spending quite a while searching, I finally at least found a page that showed the disposition of the organ and learned of the short octave and split key feature of the manuals and pedal board. Getting to try this kind of organ out is one thing, but now I had to play an hour concert with only a hypothetical understanding of split key and short octaves. This was a whole nother level of intense. Before I dive into the stops and split key action, some big things I would recommend doing. First, study my stop labels and pre-write sticky notes as I've typed so you can put them on the stops. The location of the draw knobs with each stop label is very confusing. Bring tape and scissors too, and a pen. Pick pieces with keys that are primarily white note oriented. Have a friend up there with you, either to turn pages, for moral support, to pull out draw knobs, or to mimic the conductor's gestures happening downstairs. If a decent choir is singing with you, the singers and conductor will not fit in the balcony. Lastly, bring more music than you anticipate needing. Okay, let's look at the layout of the stops first. One disclaimer, I can't remember which manual is the great and which is the positive. I seem to recall that the top was the great, but that'll be an easy thing for you to discover. I largely left the manuals uncoupled and just had a more and less volume to them. Here's the stop list as given on the Czech website. It has the stops listed going down, so that's helpful. Study as you wish, pause as you desire, then let's look at the English translation as also offered by the same website. This was really hard to find, but translating organ into Czech is what finally helped. I never would have guessed that the Czech word for organs is varhany. My first task when confronting the organ was to figure out which stops were on the great and which were on the positive. As you can see from my two pictures here, both sides contain portions of all three divisions, great, positive, and pedal. Seriously consider having these written out to put on the stops before you come. Some draw knobs are below the label, some above, and some beside. My brain was fried after this concert. So that was basic stuff. Next, I had to quickly convert my hypothetical knowledge of the short octave and split key trick into action. I had never actually played on an organ with these features. In the comments, I've provided a link to a comprehensive video explaining this, but the gist of the short octave is this. The bottom two notes are C and F. Then the rest of the white notes run up as expected. The main portion of the black notes is, in order from left to right, D, E, and B flat. As for the split key function, the furthest raised portion from left to right is F sharp and G sharp. The remaining one is B flat. Though my fancy book learning taught me these things, there was no time to put that knowledge to practice because I had never been able to physically experience one. I think I did find the willpower to play 3 or 4 of these throughout the course of the concert though, and somehow during my 30 minutes of prep, I also labeled all the notes just in case. The pedals down below had the short octave feature as well. I noted that the low C and the middle C in the pedals were actually the same low 16 pitch level, so I found myself seldom leaping all the way down to that low C. Well, you already have my pro tips from earlier, so this about sums up my experience and learning curve with this organ and the church's surprise agenda for our concert. Obviously, if you find this video helpful, give me a like, but I'd really prefer that you give me a comment below to tell me if you've had the pleasure of playing on this extraordinary instrument and what your experience was like. I'll leave you with a selection from the recital. It's called Prelude on the Doxology by Alice Jordan. At the end, there will be a couple more links to videos from that day. Thanks for watching.